Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining. This is NPN's Friday feature where we highlight one of our members, and I'm so excited. I just love this opportunity because we have so many amazing members. I think we've got over 40 member organizations across the country, and we have a wonderful member directory on our website, but there really is nothing like being able to hear directly from the person that had the idea to start the work that they're doing now after their experience in the NICU or their experience with loss. So today I am joined by Ali Dunn, who is the founder of Me Too Books. Ali, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk about you and your books and everything that you do. Um,
Thanks
so
for having me.
let's just start right there. So tell us about, your personal NICU experience. Were you high risk to begin with? Was it a complete shock when you had NICU babies? Tell us about that.
So, my NICU journey really started before all of that with infertility. So,
Oh,
I
okay.
had a huge struggle with getting pregnant.
Mhm.
We did everything from acupuncture to IVF to just relax and doing nothing at all.
Right.
And it wasn't until our second IVF that I finally found out that I was pregnant, which was very exciting after 3.5, almost 4 years of
Wow.
struggling.
That's a
And
long
then
time.
it was a long time, it was a long struggle. I mean, I had friends that were pregnant twice in the time that I was still trying to get
Right.
pregnant the first time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, actually really early on in that pregnancy, we found out that not only was I having one baby, but I was having two babies. So, I was pregnant with identical twins.
Oh, wow.
So that made that pregnancy high risk.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was highly monitored. And the first part of the pregnancy went pretty good. It was kind of uneventful, very typical what you would expect with a twin pregnancy.
Yeah.
At about 27 weeks, I went to a normal OB appointment. My doctor noticed some signs of preterm labor, and so
Mm-hmm.
she sent me over to the hospital for some additional monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd get some fluids,
Yep.
I'd get monitored, I'd go home, no big deal.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work out that way. So I was admitted and I was on indefinite bed rest at
Oh,
that.
wow. So did you feel any of these signs of preterm labor, or was it kind of a shock to you for them to say, we're seeing some
Yeah,
signs of
it
preterm?
was a shock to me. They were like, "Did you just feel that that's a contraction?" And I said, "No, I didn't feel that." I had
Wow.
no idea. I've
Yeah,
been walking around all this time. I had no idea.
right. Wow.
So I was admitted. I was put on bed rest. I mean, I was in flip flops that day. I didn't even have like a pair of socks. So I
Yeah.
was in the hospital with nothing,
Yeah.
and I just didn't know how long I was going to be there.
Hmm.
So they were able to stop the contractions and stop many of the issues with medication, and so I was just on a campaign really to convince my doctor I can do this at home. Send
Right.
me home. I will do strict bed rest at home. I
Right.
just don't want to be in the hospital anymore.
Right.
So finally, after 8 days, all of my nagging paid off. They said, yes, okay, you can go home. We have
Okay.
to monitor the babies one more time and then we'll discharge you.
Wow.
At that monitoring, they noticed some signs of fetal distress. And that was the first time, I was monitored continuously for days. That was the first time that there was any issues. And at that point, it was, oh, you're not going home today. We're delivering these babies now.
Oh
You're
my
in the
gosh. Wow. That must have just been such a roller coaster thinking, yes, I'm finally getting out of here. I can just go sleep in my own bed and be in the comforts of my own home. And
yeah.
then, oh, never mind. You're having these babies. Wow.
Yeah, it was so disappointing and so scary, and it was just kind of, and it happened all so fast. Within an hour I was prepped in the OR, and at 28 weeks my twins were born.
Oh,
Together they weighed less than 5 pounds if you add up their birth weights, so obviously they were taken straight to the NICU.
yeah. Had a neonatologist come to talk to you while you were on bed rest at all?
They did at the very end. Once they realized that the babies were going to be born, they came and they said, they're going to have to go to the NICU and this is what's going to happen. But that was really my only experience with the NICU.
Yeah,
Obviously, it was a possibility. Like anytime you're pregnant with multiples, it's a possibility.
right.
Multiple pregnancies usually don't go as long, and there's usually, the chance for low birth weight and all of that.
Mhm.
So I knew it was a possibility, but
Yeah,
I certainly was in no way prepared. I
right.
hadn't retoured the NICU.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I had triplets, and so same thing. It was like, okay, I know I'm not going to term. And they were like, we're going to try and get you to 34 weeks if we can. And, they'll need a little help eating, they might need a little help breathing, but it really, you know, it didn't even dawn on me that they could come even earlier than that. Like,
Right.
I just thought there's no way. And then the tour that we got of the NICU was the transition nursery.
Oh, yeah. Not the same.
Not the same at all. So, yeah, I can certainly relate to, you know, knowing that there's that risk, but not really being prepared for it.
No, and I don't know that you can really be prepared,
Yeah,
but certainly you could do more than I did.
right.
Like I just didn't even know what to expect. And I remember when they were born, I remember thinking, and I even said that out loud. I'm like, oh, they're cute. They're pretty cute. I didn't even know what to expect, what they would even look like. Like
Right.
I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, they're pretty cute.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so that began the time then in the NICU. And with two babies in the NICU, it's just a lot. And the hospital that we were at with the NICU was a very traditional kind of open bay situation. So it didn't have a private room.
Mhm.
There were times when the babies were in separate areas. The staff did a great job trying to, as much as they could, put their isolates right next to each other so I could kind of spend time with both of them. But sometimes, depending on their treatments, they were just separated. And so I'd have to spend some time here and then some time there. And so certainly there's a lot of guilt that goes along with that because you feel like you're not giving either baby what they need in terms of your time and bonding and all of that.
Right. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the hospital that we were at, while I do believe we received excellent medical care,
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot of support. There
Wow.
were no parent support groups. There were no parent mentors.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that stuff existed even. I didn't know that we were missing out on anything. And I
Exactly.
didn't even know that there was like an online support group that you could find or resources.
Right. Right.
I got some pamphlets in a folder, which I never had time to look at, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah. And so I'm wondering too, because I remember with my girls, they didn't necessarily have good days on the same day. And I
Right.
remember feeling guilty, like if, Avery was struggling on, getting off her blood pressure medication, but Lily, like, got to feed for the first time or whatever it was. And I remember like that guilt that you were talking about. Part of it for me was, okay, I want to celebrate this baby, but then, but does that mean that I'm like not worried enough about the other baby? And it was like, they talk about the roller coaster, but the roller coasters never, rose and fell at the same time.
No, no, it was a continuous ride, like around and
Yes.
around because
Yes.
and when the good days with one baby, you wanna be there to celebrate the
Right.
milestones there, but you're like, "Well, but my other baby, do they need me more?" It's just
Right.
really it was
It's
really
really,
difficult.
yeah.
Now, luckily, I had already started my maternity leave, so I
Mhm.
was able to devote hours of the day to being there,
Yeah.
so that helped, but it's still really hard to kind of spread yourself between two babies.
Yeah, absolutely. So can I ask how long the NICU stay was for your twins?
So, they actually did, really well.
Mhm.
Of course, at the time, it feels like, as you said, it's a roller coaster. It's
Yeah,
two steps forward, one step back.
right.
But now, looking back in hindsight, I realize that, they dealt with all the typical preemie things that you can expect, the jaundice and the apnea and, the PDAs and all that.
Right.
But really, after 55 days, my first baby came home. And then
Mhm.
10 days later, the second one came home.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the hardest times. I had
Mhm.
been looking forward to so much to them coming home,
Yep.
never occurred to me that they wouldn't come home together.
Right.
That I
Right.
would have one there and one at
Yep.
home, and that was really hard. Talk about guilt,
Yes.
because you wanna be home with the baby, that's what you have been dreaming about and
Right.
hoping for and praying for,
Yep.
and now but you have this other baby now that's there all by themselves,
Yes.
and for some reason, I always felt like when I would leave at night because, I didn't have there was no private room, so you couldn't stay.
Mhm.
Well, at least they had each other, at least they're together.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know, it made me feel better.
Right.
Now
Right.
I felt like,
I get that.
someone
Mhm.
was all by themselves, and it was sad. So,
You know,
it was
that's so
luckily, it was only 10 days of that, but it was definitely a struggle.
yeah, for sure. And, were there so it was in an open bay, was it a large NICU or was it a smaller NICU? Like,
It was
could
a
you
fairly
see
large
any of the other families and that kind of thing?
yeah, it was a fairly large NICU. I think they had, like, 20 or 30 beds, and they
Mhm,
did have, a step down kind of overflow area that overlapped with just the term, healthy babies that were there.
mhm.
And there were other parents and things that you would see in passing, like, as I sat there day after day, you'd recognize the faces and make small talk, but there wasn't really, any kind of a program or any kind of a framework to
To
bring
bring you
those
guys
parents together.
together. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so we all just kind of, said hello in passing and.
Mhm. Yeah, you're almost if there's not a framework, you don't know if it's even allowed, like,
Right.
I say hi to this parent? Should I not say hi to this parent? It can be a just not knowing what the right thing to do.
Right, and you don't know,
That's
like, what's happening too in their situation, like, are they having a really bad day because something's going on and,
right.
you don't know if you're kind of overstepping boundaries or yeah, so it was difficult for sure.
So I just wanna share with you something that, Ashley has said in the comments. Ashley, thanks for joining us again. She's one of our faithful listeners, every Friday. So she says, "Tons of hugs sent your way. 10 days could feel like a year." And yeah,
For sure.
absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. So one of the things that I think has been so interesting as we've been doing these features is um, asking each of the members when that moment was that you felt like you had to do something for other families. And for some people, it's been they're sitting in the NICU, with their child and, something they see happen around them or something, they've had an experience and they're just like, hey, I've got to do something. For others, it's been later, it's been a year, 2 years after they've gotten home. So can you tell us about, what that was like for you? When did you feel like you needed to do something?
Sure. So for me, I was one of those late bloomers. It was a little later for me. As my twins got a little bit older, and we would talk so much about their birth story, and they look at the pictures and look at their little tiny diapers, and we always included the NICU as part of that story, and
Yeah.
they knew very well that they were preemies.
Mhm.
So as we talked about that, I always thought, gosh, I really would love to have a book, like a children's book that we can read about being a preemie or about the NICU to kind of supplement all those conversations and
Yeah.
things that we were having. And so I did what one does. I just went on Amazon and tried to find
Right.
something, and I
Right.
really couldn't. There was very little out there.
Yeah.
And I really wanted something that was a very simple introduction to the NICU, something developmentally appropriate for a young toddler.
Mhm.
And when I didn't find that, I just decided that I would DIY it. I'm like, well, I'll just make something, you know. So I wrote out some words and drew some little pictures and
Uh-huh.
printed two copies. And I'm like, okay, great. Now we can read this, as we talk about how they were born and what they've accomplished so far in
Yeah.
surviving, the NICU. And it wasn't until friends and family members and other people are like, hey, I need a copy of that. My neighbor's baby is in the NICU. I would really like to give them a copy of that book. And so it kind of grew organically.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I realized, this has really been something that's been helpful and beneficial for my family. So
Mm,
maybe it'd be something that other people would be interested in as
yeah.
well.
Now, had you written a book before? Was this
No.
anything? No.
No, I'd never written a book. I mean, certainly in my professional life, I did a lot of writing, but not in a creative sense.
Okay.
So this was my first endeavor into creative writing, and I fell in love with it. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I have a background in higher education, so I like the blending of the creativity with using a book or literature as an educational tool.
Right. It's also a bonding tool, as we know very
Absolutely,
well,
absolutely,
it's,
yeah.
for young children, for babies, for NICU babies. So what was the title of the first one?
So the first book was called I Was a Preemie Just Like You.
Mhm.
And then a few years, actually about a year or so after that, as I became kind of more immersed in this community, this NICU community, I learned so much more. And
Yeah,
I realized that, gosh, not all babies in the NICU are preemies. I mean, that
yeah,
was certainly my experience, but certainly not for everybody. And
right,
so then that's when we developed the second version of the same book.
yeah.
And that one's called I Needed the NICU, Just Like You. So basically, it's the same book, but one is for preemies, and then one is for just any baby that's been in the NICU.
And so is it, so it's something kind of like toddler level or elementary school level?
Yes, the text is very simple text. It's
Mhm.
rhyming text, so something that young children
Yeah.
can really kind of get into. And
Mhm.
I know my kids always had the words memorized because it's in that rhyme. It's like a
Right.
song.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's like the first. It's your first book for a preemie or for a NICU baby. It really simply breaks down what the NICU is. It puts it in terms of kind of a little bit of an adventure, so it wasn't a scary experience.
Right.
And it lets these kids know that they're not alone, that there's lots of other kids out there who've been through similar things.
And how many books do you have now?
So I have 4 books total. So I was a preemie and I needed the NICU. And then I have a book for twins called One of Two, and it's a story about individuality. And then I have a book called The Career Explorer, which is a book for kids to introduce the career development process. And so that kind of ties into what I did professionally as a
Mhm.
career counselor. So, kind of introducing those topics of career development and career exploration for kids.
That is so cool. So do you think there are more titles in you that are, kind of NICU prematurity based? Are you gonna expand your library?
That's a good question. I do think I have a few more books that are kind of on the horizon. I think I've really transitioned from talking just to kids that are in the NICU or just to preemies into kind of the idea of we all have differences. Let's celebrate those differences in ourselves and in
Mhm.
others and embrace those. And that's kind of the theme that I like to carry throughout all of my books.
Right. And you've got you're very active on social media, and I love the library hall posts that you do. So can you tell us, because I know, tell us like how people can find you, where can they find your books, but also tell us about, about your social media presence, because I love following you.
Sure. So the best place to get all the information is just go to my website, which is metwobooks.com. And two is TWO, like
I'll put
the
it in
number
the
two.
chat.
So metwobooks.com. And from there, you can find links to purchase any of the books. We also have a line of cards for NICU babies, a congratulations card and a celebrate the small things card. So it's always nice to, if you don't know what to say to a friend or family member who's had a NICU baby, you can send a card.
Mhm.
And then I also have a course, an e-course about career development for kids, and that's all available there. And as Kira said, I am on social media with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and it's easiest just to start at the website, and then I have links to all those things. You can find all the different handles there. And we do talk a lot about books because certainly I enjoy writing books, but I also spend so much time reading. It's one of
Mhm.
my favorite ways to bond with my kids, even from those NICU days. Like it was the one thing really in the NICU where I felt like I feel like a normal parent when I'm reading to my kids. That's something that all parents do.
Yep.
I may not be able to hold them today. I may not be able to change their diaper. I can't feed them, but all parents sit and read to their kids, and that was an escape for me. And so that's kind of the core of what we do. It's that bonding experience, but also gives parents a little bit of an escape to feel normal, if just for a few pages of a book.
Right, absolutely. I love that. It's, it is so much of what we search for too, because it is such an abnormal place to be a parent. So when you can do something like that, and so I have to ask, do your kids still love to read?
They love to read.
Oh,
It's
good.
their favorite thing to do. If you ask people ask them, "Oh, what are you guys gonna do this weekend?" They said, "Oh, we're gonna get a big pile of books and we're gonna read." It's their favorite thing to do.
That's awesome. I love that. So, metobooks.com, I've got that in the chat. So start there and you can follow all of their social media channels from the website. So let me ask you as we close up, we've just got two more questions. One is a fill in the blank. So NICU and bereaved families are.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard just to pick one thing. Um, but the last line of my book, I Was a Preemie Just Like You, is I am very brave for all that I've been through. I am a miracle just like you. And so I guess I'm going to say that they are miraculous. Not only are they parenting actual little walking miracles, but
Mhm.
going through that, and what I've seen is so many people who've been through the NICU want to help other people, and to go through such trauma and be able to still help others, I think is a miracle.
Oh, I love that, Allie. I love that. So when we post this later, I'm going to post that last line of your book. Um, okay, one thing that you wish every NICU and bereaved family knew.
Mm. Well, I'd like to think about like what do I wish I would have known?
Mhm.
And I wish someone would have said to me, it's okay to not be okay. Like this
Yeah,
this is not something that you could ever anticipate. There is no one right way to do this, and you don't have to be this perfect expectation or this perfect picture of what you think a NICU parent should be.
right.
Um, I really wish someone would have given me permission just to be a big mess, and I think it would have helped me deal with the trauma and transition through that a lot easier.
Yeah.
And for me, it really didn't happen until I wrote these books and kind of
Mm,
processed it that way.
mm,
So I don't know who needs to hear this, but from one NICU parent to another, it is okay to not be okay.
yeah. I love that. It's absolutely true, and um, I'm so glad that you said that. And I'm sure that there is someone that needed to hear that today, or whenever it is that they'll be watching this. So I do hope this wasn't on your list of questions. So it sounds like the writing of the books helped you heal from the experience.
Yeah, it certainly did. It was kind of like a process of creating something not unlike,
Yeah.
being pregnant and giving birth, but it was something that I did on my terms, something that I had complete control of.
Mhm.
And so, it's kind of cliche. You hear people say, well, I birthed, or this is my new baby or whatever. But
Right.
it kind of has that same
Mhm.
process. It's a
Yeah.
creation process that I was in complete control of and happy with the outcome.
Yeah.
Something that met my expectations instead of falling short of them,
Right.
as a unplanned traumatic birth can be.
Yeah.
So yeah, that process for me was very cathartic for sure.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because I think, that we do have, or we have talked to a lot of um, members and, parents who have talked about journaling and writing as a way to help them process and heal. So that's also, just something that maybe somebody needs to hear today, and just to pick up that pen or that pencil or your phone and your notes app or wherever it is easiest. But that's great. So everybody, me too, that's twobooks.com. We've got the website in the chat comments, and please, please, please take a look at Allie's website, order her books, and follow her social media. Is there anything else that you want to share, or any last comments for anybody?
I just want to let people know that if certainly, we sell books just one at a time, but if you are an organization that works with NICU families and you would like more than one book for NICU care packages and that kind of thing,
Mhm.
we love working with organizations and
Yes.
giving you a nice, a discounted bulk rate so that you can spread the word and help those families bond over a great book.
And I do love when I see a post from another member. I know Sylvie Bells has included your books a lot, and other members. So great way to include something in those care packages. Or if your NICU has a library, add some copies to the NICU library. I think it's, again, like you said, it's just something that that you can do that feels normal,
Right.
and really is a way to bond with your baby. Well, Ali, thank you so much for sitting down with me and having this chat. I always love talking with you, and can't wait to see what comes next, because I have a feeling there's another book in you.
This might be. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody.